Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Tomlinson. My name is Salome Hailu. I write about TV for Variety, and it is my great honor to moderate this panel with Taylor Tomlinson, who you know from After Midnight on CBS, and who is also currently on her Save Me stand-up tour. She recently sold out a bunch of shows in Boston, Chicago. For those of you who are local, she'll be in San Antonio and Austin later this month. Let's say hello to her.
Oh my goodness. What a fun little sizzle reel that was. I had not seen the show yet, so it looks really fun. Who was at the Michelle Obama panel before this? Oh my gosh. Okay, well this will not be as good. Just manage your expectations.
Welcome to South by Taylor.
Thank you so much.
How's your time in Austin been?
It's been great. I got in last night. I fell asleep. The best.
That's exactly what all of our South bys have been like.
Yeah, I don't sleep a lot these days, so it was amazing.
So After Midnight is on its second season on CBS, but unlike most streaming shows, that means you've done like almost 200 episodes now, as opposed to the regular 16.
Something like that, yeah.
Talk to us about what you were looking for before this show came together for you, because we've known you as a stand-up for many years. So what were you trying to do with this show, and how has your life changed since then?
Oh gosh, I was not trying to host a show at all. I was doing stand-up and loving stand-up, and this opportunity just kind of came along. Like, I remember hearing that they were gonna do like a reimagining of At Midnight, and I was like, oh, whoever gets that hosting job, that's gonna be so cool. I hope I get to be a guest on that at some point. And when my team came to me with the meeting, I was like, well, I have to tour on the weekends, so I can't host a show Monday through Friday. And in the meeting, they were like, we're going to film Monday through Wednesday. And I was like, okay, then maybe I could. So now I have an insane schedule where I host a show Monday through Wednesday and I tour Thursday through Sunday.
Sounds totally manageable.
It's totally fine. I'm fine. I'm doing really well. And I do have a personal life, in theory.
So as you said, After Midnight is a reboot of At Midnight, which ran in the 2010s with Chris Hardwick. How much did you watch that show back when it was on, or as you were prepping for this show? And how did it feel to kind of come into a property that sort of already existed? Like, were you wanting to pay homage? Were you wanting to make it your own?
Well, I didn't have TV when it was on. Like, and it was really hard to watch online because it was on Comedy Central. And I don't remember like how you could get it streaming, but it was tough at the time. So I actually hadn't seen very much of the show beyond like some clips online. So I did like buy some episodes on Apple or something. There was somewhere where you could like buy them. And afterward they were like, we could have sent you a link. And I'm like, oh, I should have asked. And I don't have the self-esteem to be like, can you send me a link to the show? And so I did watch some when I was interviewing for the job, which was like over a few months, because I really wasn't sure if I was going to take it or not, if I did get it. Just because, again, I love doing stand-up. I love touring. It is like a lot to take on. And hosting any sort of show, late night or otherwise, was like never something that was on my radar, like on my vision board or anything like that. And it just came at a time where I was feeling like, oh man, it would be nice to like see more comedians, because being on the road, you just don't get to see as many comedians as you do when you're coming up and like doing the clubs and all that. And I love that the show like platforms comedians that maybe people haven't heard of. It's like one of those shows that helps introduce you to your new favorite comics, hopefully. And so I just wanted to be a part of that. And every meeting I had, I was like, oh wow, I really love all these people who are involved with the show. And I would just like love to have them as coworkers every day. So yeah.
You get to pick your own office.
Yeah. Did that answer your question? I don't even know.
Yes. Totally.
Okay, great. I got so far away from what the question was.
We're all here for you. You can say whatever you want.
But obviously the show is on CBS, which is much different than Comedy Central, and it's twice as long. Like the old show was 30 minutes and this is an hour. And so there's a lot more time to fill. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect because like the show was already developed. Like they had hired writers. Like I think I was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. So I was very much not like developing a show. I was being hired to host a show that had been, created.
So how has that arc felt, like coming into that space of everything that was already set up for you and then becoming the person whose name is in the title?
Is there a baby in here? Oh my goodness. Don't leave. Just bring the baby up here. Honestly, wouldn't you rather just hang out with a baby than hear me be like, when I was 16, I started doing stand-up. I saw someone at work, my dressing room is now right by the daycare on the Paramount lot. It's not okay. And they had someone at work brought in their baby, and I didn't know the baby was in like my dressing room area with my team. And I came in, and they're like, "There's a baby in here," and I saw the baby, and I started weeping. Cause sometimes I'm like, ask what point of my cycle I'm in before you bring a baby in here. That's rude. Okay, this is not a way to treat the only woman in late night. No, I'm kidding. I hate that. But it really stressed me out. So now anytime there's a baby, did the baby calm down now that I'm talking about it? That's so funny. That baby has a future in show business. The baby's like, what about me? No, that's such a cute. What's the baby's name? Sawyer? Oh my God. Sorry. I shouldn't have asked. Anyway, you were asking about my career or something. Oh, man. It's fine. I'm 31. I have time. And the world is like great, so it's a great time.
It's a perfect time.
To have kids in a couple years.
So talk to us a little bit about how different it's felt to come into this space where you've got people writing for you and you're writing alongside them, and this format that you're working with, which is obviously so different from the singular voice that you've established as a stand-up comedian. How does that feel to like work with writers and have their voice, because voices come together to become you?
I gotta be honest, it's sick. It's so awesome. Like, it was funny because when I started hosting the show, and this was probably just to help me feel confident, which I really appreciated. Again, it's such a great team of people. They were like, "You are so good at reading teleprompter." And I was like, I do jokes from my head, like most weekends. Like I have to memorize this usually. And they were like, "You're just so good at this." And I'm like, I come into work, people dress me, brush my hair, write the jokes for me, and then I just read them. Like, this is incredible. Like, we have such an amazing writer's room, led by the incredible Joe Firestone, who, Joe Firestone's like such a genius, and like I tell her all the time, the best thing I got out of this job was her phone number. Like, she has to text me back. It's awesome. She's so brilliant. And yeah, our whole room, like, coming into this job, I was like, they'll write like 20 games and we'll cycle through those 20 games and it'll be great. And they write new games every day. Like, we have ones like Who's Your Zaddy that we showed up there that we play multiple times a month usually. But like, for the most part, like, I come in every day and I get to be surprised, and I'm genuinely laughing harder than I have in weeks, like every day on that show. Like, it's such a joy to come in and get to read what like 10 amazing writers wrote for you. It's incredible.
What are your favorite things about the format? Do you have any particular favorite games or things that you tell your writers you're looking for more of?
No, no, they do such a good job. I mean, the most I'll ever do, I think there's been like a couple games that I came up with, but like truly so few. Like, they are doing so much of the work. It's crazy. Like, I will send Joe a lot of TikToks as like could this be something? And then sometimes she uses them, sometimes they don't. But yeah, I mean, they're all so funny in like different ways. And honestly, I don't know if I could even be in a writer's room like this. Like, it's so demanding to come up with so many jokes, because they're not just writing games, they're coming up with jokes for 3 to 6 different guests every day that they have to then go pitch to them. And then if they want alts or they want to develop new jokes, like, it's a lot of work to be a writer on our show, and they're all incredible. So I feel really lucky.
I did want to ask you, since you mentioned sending TikToks to your showrunner, your show feels very influenced by the exact moment, which comes a lot from social media in a way that we haven't really seen for this sort of show. So talk to me a bit about like what your influences are, what you're pulling from online, and how you like choose to respond and not respond to that kind of stuff.
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, I think when the show started, they were like, we're not going to be a political show. We're just going to be silly and fun. And then, things are very different now. And it's like impossible to not talk about it. So we do talk about what's going on politically and everything now, not to the extent that maybe like Colbert does. And our show is very silly first and foremost. But yeah, I mean, our show is about the biggest things that happened on the internet that day. So that's going to be a combination of like, something crazy Trump said, something insane Elon did, and then like someone who cheated in Boston or something. Like it's going to be someone who like found out their boyfriend cheated on them and whatever. Like what goes viral every day, there's such a range. And the nice thing about our show is like we can really talk about whatever we want. And Sawyer needs another round of applause. Everybody round of applause for Sawyer.
Yeah, Sawyer.
People are going to leave this going, the baby's a plant. Taylor travels with the baby. I'm so sorry. It's my uterus. It's not me. Up here, all business. Down here, in the back of the room with Sawyer. But yeah, it's the nice thing about the show is it can be whatever we want. So even if there is something that we're like, this isn't technically like viral, but I think it's silly. Like me doing a monologue about Better Man. Who saw Better Man? Oh, hell yeah. Still too few. That movie's so good. I won't go into it because we'll be here all day. But that movie's so good. And I did like a, 8-minute monologue just about that movie. And that's what's nice about being on a show like this is like where they're like, you're on really late. Do whatever you want. So that you can do that silly stuff in addition to like, having to write a monologue the day after the election results. Like it's very flexible and I like that. And we have a great like small monologue team now that works with me directly. Like one of my best friends, Sophie Buttle, is our head monologue writer, and she usually opens for me on the road too. And so I'm usually sending her like 10 to 12 TikToks at midnight, going like, "Is this anything?" And in the morning, she's like, 2 of them or something. So.
Can you talk us through the process of that a little bit? Like maybe from conception of the first TikTok you saw that inspired you to one that actually became a monologue on the show.
Ooh, okay. Well, Better Man, no, I'll talk about something. No, you know what? I will talk about Better Man. So Better Man, I saw and was like, I saw the trailer for Better Man and I was like, love that. And nobody else felt that way. So I saw it with my sibling and another friend of ours, and then we were obsessed. And then I had to convince all of my friends to see it, which was harder than you would imagine. And I finally got Sophie to watch it because I was like, we do a monologue about it. And so I had to go to get my friends to see it. I had to go with them. I had to like chaperone them to make sure they'd go. And they all loved it, by the way. I was right 100% of the time. So I saw it like 4 times in theaters to get everyone. Sorry, I spent a lot of money on that film, and she went to see it with me so that we could write jokes about it, and we had Caroline and Dave, who are also monologue writers, go see it on their own time as well. And that was an example of one where like we talked about it for a couple weeks. There was one this week where there was a video that had gone viral over our winter break about a couple who sleeps in bunk beds. Has anyone seen that?
I've seen them.
You've seen that. Okay, great. And there was like a follow-up that she had posted. And so that's why I finally saw it. And I was like, why didn't we cover this? This was viral. This is the kind of things I care about. And so we did a monologue about that kind of after the fact. But that was something I sent Sophie at like midnight. And the next morning at 8 a.m. when she had to be up, she was like, oh, this is perfect. We're all riffing on it right now. And then it's like on TV that night, which is hilarious.
I just realized I forgot to do a bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions about Better Man or anything else for Taylor, make sure you get on the South by Southwest app and submit some audience questions because we're going to get to those at the end. But to move on to my part of this. Talk to me a bit also about like the guests that you bring on, because as you said, I know platforming young comedians is really big for you. You have a lot of different actors and podcasters and all kinds of things. It's also probably the most like diverse crop of guests that we get across all the late night shows. So I know obviously you have a team of bookers who are in charge of that, but what is the ethos behind who you want to bring out, and kind of just like what excites you about the people you get to collaborate with?
Oh gosh, I mean, yeah, like you said, we have an amazing booking team, and our talent team is always trying to book people together that maybe like have a connection to each other or like are friends. Like we had the Handsome Pod on, and that was awesome. We had Sashir and Mateo and Nicole on, and they're all like best friends, and that was super fun. Gillian Jacobs was on this week and is a big fan of Trixie Mattel, which same. And so she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited I get to meet Trixie. And like just stuff like that. People have like loose connections to each other in this business, but like people who are really fans of each other or are genuinely close friends, like it is so much fun to just like mess around on stage together. And then, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like being on a network, like I'm not even I couldn't even explain the booking process as well as they could, I'm sure, because like there's so many different people with so many different ideas and opinions and notes. And so I think what our talent team has been able to do so beautifully is like take everybody's input, like what CBS wants, what our EPs want, what I want, like what our showrunners want, and come to a decision every week about 4 different panels of 3 people, in addition to like special guests that we've had on as well to do like walk-ons who maybe don't want to do the time commitment that it takes to come in and prep for the show. I think they've done such a good job, and we've had so many incredible panels that I genuinely like look forward to on the calendar for weeks.
Can you talk a little bit about like building the guests around the different people that you have on? Because you have so many people who are, improvisers and comedy writers of their own volition who probably come with ideas or things you can gear towards them, and people who this kind of format is probably pretty different for and new. How do you guys gear, what games and jokes and things that you do for the people that you bring on?
I mean, again, that's probably a question better answered by our booking team and our writers' room, because they're really the ones who are handling all of that. Like, and just our producer Dom is like so great at for our new like talk show portion. Like, I don't know if anyone watches the show or if that was your first. Oh, good. Oh, thank goodness.
You guys watch the show.
It's okay. No, you don't have to lie. But you're like, you guys watch it. No, if you do watch it, then you already know this. But if you don't, like, it's sort of it's evolved for sure. Like, I think in the beginning we were having guests on who didn't have as much of a connection to each other, and as we've gone on, now we're like a year and a half in, I think they really try to focus on getting people who have a history, have things in common, maybe have similar sensibilities comedy-wise, so that then, and like each person gets paired with a writer, and usually the writers like have people they want to work with because maybe they gravitate towards their like comedic voice more so. So I think we really set people up to succeed in a way that I hope people come into the show feeling like very, very prepared and considered, and like they've had people writing specifically for them. Because, you go on a typical late night show and you're coming in with your own stories, your own joke pitches, they're not like, and then you could tell a joke about this. Like, I think our show, even if you came in and you did not want to write a single joke, riff a single thing, like you could come in at 1 p.m. that day and by 4 o'clock be like completely ready to go. Yeah.
Along with kind of being really thoughtful about the chemistry between guests and the writers, is there anything else that you've felt has helped you really lock into what the show is now that you're close to 200 episodes? Like, what have you learned over the course of these 2 seasons that's helped you feel like you found what the show is supposed to be?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, it's a new experience for me to get like notes, obviously, because like stand up, no one's giving you notes. Like I've done 3 specials with Netflix, and they've never been like, don't talk about this, talk more about this, like maybe change. Like you just don't get notes with stand up. You have complete control. So it's been interesting to be on a show on a network where they do have notes, they do have input, and so you do have to sort of like figure out how to marry like what you want the show to be and what they want the show to be, and also just figuring it out, because sometimes like with new shows, or newish shows I should say, people don't always necessarily know what it is yet, and that certainly felt like the case in season 1, whereas season 2 we like made some changes in like doing the talk show portion in the middle of the show, which like started as a joke. We used to do that as a bit in season 1. We had like a tiny little couch that I would pop up on the podium and go, it's talk show portion time. And then we would do like a dumb question as sort of like a way to make fun of the fact that we weren't a real late night show, and we are a real late night show. We took over a slot, I'm sorry. But we weren't a traditional late night show. And sorry, I'm just remembering my talking points. We weren't a traditional late night show, but when the show first started, Reddit was like, this isn't a late night show, this is something else. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't, So I think our show is much better described as like a mix between Whose Line Is It Anyway and America's Funniest Home Videos, but with TikTok. That's what I think the show is. So it's been interesting to kind of like figure out what we want the show to be. And I think like me and Joe Firestone and the rest of the writers team, like what we've always liked about it is like, hopefully we're very self-aware and we're not taking ourselves too seriously, and we didn't come into this like, and we've taken over Corden's spot and this is very important. Like we came in like, this is going to be silly and stupid. And I think the best episodes are ones where we're all very loose. Like we did one the other night where like 2 guests got sick at the last minute and we had to replace them. We replaced them with panelists who had been on a bunch of times and were so good. And like Michelle Collins had just flown in and like came straight from the airport, and we were all kind of like loopy and tired, and it was the best because it's just like that joke that we had in the Sizzle with Thomas Lennon saying like low stakes TV, like that episode. I was like, this is very low stakes TV, you guys. Like it's fine. Like we will edit anything out that you want. Like I think probably more than any other show, because I've done a lot of late night shows myself. Like we will let you edit anything out. Like I feel like it's a very safe show for people to come on and do, because yes, you have to be there for a while, and yes, it's a lot of jokes, but like we have such a great team and they do want to make you look the best they can make you look. And I mean, I do it all the time where I'm like, cut that. That's not great. So, I think that the show that we've landed on is one that's very self-aware, very goofy and silly, and kind of just like what I think like shows that are on after midnight should be, which is just like the underlying theme is always, isn't this crazy? We're on fucking TV. Like, what are we doing right now? That's kind of how I feel about it.
So as you said, you're not a traditional late night show. We have a different feeling here than you get from Colbert or the others. I
did not finish college. That's the difference. No, you watch a late night show usually and you're like, they finished college.
They all went to Georgetown. Like,
yeah, exactly.
All of this in Georgetown specifically.
Yeah.
So do you feel that in any way those shows influence you at all? Or if not, can you talk a bit more about things like Whose Line Is It Anyway and how they've inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew up watching Whose Line, and I loved that Drew Carey was always like, this doesn't matter. Like, I thought that was great. And that's kind of the attitude I've adopted on our show too, because we are giving away useless points as well. And like the prize is always something really bad and dumb. And, we did give away, I don't even think we actually gave it away, but our prize this week was a Prada bag. And I was like, what's this? They're like, it belongs to one of our PAs. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, did we get a budget? What happened? No one told me. So like our first episode, we gave away my father's approval. Like that was the prize. You know, like we've given away like a handful of almonds. Like we've given away really dumb stuff. We gave away a cell phone from the 80s this week. And I forget who won, but they were like, can I really keep this? And we're like, yeah, if you want. And they're like, I really am going to. I'm like, you really can. Otherwise, it's going to my office, which looks crazy. So yeah, I think that was definitely a big influence on me. And then with like Colbert being our producer, you know, like his advice starting out was so helpful, and him being so available to me in the beginning of this process was really helpful. And just like making me feel more confident to grow into the role and not feel like I had to be great at it right away or like know exactly what it was right away. I also watched, there's this documentary series on Max called like The Story of Late Night. Has anyone watched that? Yeah. Okay, great. That they go through like truly just the history of late night television from the beginning. And I watched that in the middle of the first season when I was feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. And it just goes through like every show. And there's like an episode where Jimmy Kimmel's like, I hoped we got canceled the whole first year. And I was like, oh, thank God. Like nobody knows what they're doing at first. So that was very comforting. And it also kind of like, it really hyped me up where I was like, oh man, what a long legacy late night is, and what a cool thing to be a part of in this new weird way. So yeah, I think you get inspiration from a lot of different places. And like, you know, Conan's first episode is on YouTube, and it's like very dark, his opening, and like very funny. And it is very freeing to be during a time slot and a new enough show that they do have things they want you to do and they have notes for you. But there also is this sense of like, should we try something? Is anyone paying attention? Like, it's really fun.
What pieces of advice stick out to you from Colbert or any of the other people that you've gotten to get to know through this process?
The biggest thing I remember him saying is like, people will just be happy to see you. Like when they turn the TV on, like I think he's like probably the best at what he does. And he's obviously like so talented and so intelligent and such an impressive person on top of being an amazing host. But I mean, I feel that way when I get to a hotel and I turn on Colbert. I'm like, oh, there's my friend, you know? So I think you have to sort of lean into that energy as somebody who's on TV every night of the week, is just like, oh, just act like you're like seeing your friends. In the same way, like podcasters do that as well. I think like people want comfort watches and comfort listens, and that's what we wanted this show to be. So, when he said that really stuck with me. And then also just the advice of like, you don't have to be amazing right away. Like, don't be so hard on yourself.
I think you were amazing right away, but
oh my gosh,
that sounds like good advice.
That's nice.
And one of the things I found most impressive about your run throughout After Midnight is that you still do so much stand-up, definitely more than anybody else who hosts a late night show. So you said you tape Monday to Wednesday, and then you travel the country doing all kinds of things for the rest of the week. Can you just talk me through what the last few weeks of your life look like when you have such a crazy schedule like that?
Oh gosh. Well, the last few weeks were really crazy because we did 5 shows in Chicago and 6 shows in Boston. And so the show, very graciously, we usually film 1 show Monday, 1 show Tuesday, and then 2 on Wednesday. That's our long day. The second one airing on Thursday. And so I needed to travel on Wednesdays to get to all my shows. So luckily they were nice enough to go, okay, we'll do 2 Monday and 2 Tuesday. So we've done like a couple weeks of that. We did that this week too, to get me here, obviously, for this. And those are kind of like sprints. Like those are long days, obviously. But the fact that they've been flexible with me is so nice. But yeah, it is like a crazy schedule. And I definitely, I am doing less stand-up than I was. I'm still doing, like you said, a lot more than maybe a lot of comics are. But like for me, I was on tour 3, if not all weekends a month for years. And so to take this job and to know that I was going to have to scale back a little bit was a very difficult decision for me. And I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to do or not, because stand-up is the most important thing to me. It's the most rewarding thing. It's the thing that has led to all of these other opportunities. So for me, it's the foundation. And if I get bad at stand-up, then no one's going to care about anything else I do. And it's the thing that I'm most passionate about and the thing that I've been doing for 15 years now. I've been doing this for half my life. So I was very clear about that during the interview process. I was like, this is, just so you know, like, this will never be my first love. Like, this show will never be like my thing. Like, stand-up is the most important thing to me. And as long as I can do both, I would love to do both. But yeah, it was an adjustment for sure. Cause I was like, I had a different plan before this show came up. Like, my reps were like, okay, so we'll go do arenas like next time, and was looking into that and like had some held and booked. And when we got the show, I was like, oh, I can only do 2 weekends a month and I can only do one city a weekend. And I want to do theaters because I can't be learning how to host a late night show and then also learning how to do stand-up in an arena if that's the right thing to do. So yeah, it was definitely a tough decision, and it's been an adjustment for sure. But I think that everybody understands how important stand-up is to me and has been really nice about that, and, you know, thinks about that.
Thank you for talking about that so openly, because I think that, like, somebody who does the kind of work you do that's so visible and works so much, it just, like, looks super glamorous and like you have the perfect life and that every dream you've ever had has come true. And
you saw how I reacted to Sawyer. Things are good professionally. Yeah, I had a friend once who was telling, this was like years ago, and she was like, we were talking about something, and she goes, but you're doing so well. And then it was over text, she goes, you're doing so well. And then she wrote professionally in parentheses. And I was like, well, that's very honest, Irene. But yeah, no, I mean, it was something that half of my friends were like, you have to take this job. And half of my friends were like, you will die. And, you know, there are 2 wolves inside of us. And I felt like it was too good an opportunity to pass up. And I wasn't ever going to want to do something like this or be able to with my schedule. And it was never going to fit in like this. So I'm glad that I took it on. But it's been a lot, and it's been an adjustment for sure. And I am tired, but you just have to, I think if you just stay really present and grateful and figure out how to best take care of yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed and burnt out, because then you're not good for anybody. You're not good at either job, and you're not good for your team, and you're not nice to be around. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's fun to have like one gear for half the week and then switch into another gear for the weekend. And honestly, after hosting a show, flying across the country and doing stand-up feels like so easy now. Like, I was really tired before. I was like, oh man, touring so hard on your body. And now that I host a show 3 days a week, I'm like, no, that's hard. A plane is great. You don't have to wear makeup. You put on headphones. It's a spa day now. Yeah.
When do you have time to write your own material now? Do you do that while you're on a hiatus, or?
I do it on a hiatus. I do it on the weekends. Just kind of wherever you can. But yeah, Monday through Wednesday is like, I've gotten very good at compartmentalizing. I was not good at compartmentalizing before I took this job, and I've had to become good at it now with my schedule being what it is. So yeah, I mean, my ideal like day off is slow morning, going to a coffee shop, writing for a few hours, and then like going home, you know? Like, to me, a day off is writing stand-up.
Do you feel that having the show and doing a different type of comedy for these last 2 years has changed the way that you write your own stuff? Or do you just feel like you're coming home to what you've always been doing?
That's interesting. I don't know. What I like about stand-up is it's always changing, you know? Like, if you're not a particularly like observational or political comedian and more of a personal one, which is what I am, you're always going to be talking about whatever's going on in your life and whatever you're dealing with internally and whatever you're noticing in your own life and what's important to you and how you're changing your mind about things. So I think it's always more a reflection of where I'm at in life, as opposed to like, okay, now I'm going to do this type of comedy because I think the different type of comedy I'm doing is the show, because it like delivering jokes that you didn't write is fun, but it doesn't like feel fulfilling in the same way for me. Like, it's fun to collaborate and it's fun to perform jokes that Sophie or Caroline or Dave or Joe or whoever wrote, because I respect all of those people as comics, and it's fun to like play around in other people's voices a little bit. And I don't talk about politics on stage like at my live shows, so it's fun to have a place to go and take those thoughts as well. Like if something happens that's big, like normally if I wanted to talk about something, I would just do like a selfie video on TikTok or whatever in bed. And now I can like go in and workshop it with a few people and write jokes that we're all proud of about it, hopefully. But yeah, to me, that's what feels like doing comedy in a different way. Not so much what I do as a stand-up. That feels the same because it's just kind of me.
Tell us about your current tour, Save Me, and what you're working through, what you're chatting about on this tour.
Working through so much. The new tour is, my last tour, Have It All, was like a lot lighter and sillier because the special I did before that, Look at You, was a lot about like losing a parent young and mental health and being diagnosed with bipolar and like all these things. And it was really rewarding to do, but it was emotionally a lot to perform that every night. So for the last hour, I wanted it to be like much lighter and a little more like, dating's weird. And then for this hour, I was like, okay, I'm ready to like dive back into some deeper stuff. So this one it's a lot about religion, which is something that I have wrestled with for a long time because I grew up very, very religious and had to like, I started doing stand-up in churches. That's why I started doing this, and was like a very clean comic for the first 5 years that I was doing it. I know it's silly. It's a silly time, right? But I was, and like had to make a conscious choice to not go in that direction. And my whole family's very religious, and I think I had a lot of anger towards religion for years and have sort of like touched on it in all of my specials. And now I'm at a much healthier place with it. And I think I have a more balanced take on it while still being, agnostic personally. So it's a lot about that, which is why I called it Save Me, because I didn't want anyone to like come and be like, why are we talking about church? I don't want to trick anybody. And so it's a lot about that. And it's a lot about coming out as queer, which is obviously tied up in, oh, thanks, that's nice. I'll take it. Thank you. And that's obviously tied up in, coming out later and so much of that being because you grew up in like a scary Christian house. And obviously like the last bit, I think it's mostly about those two things. And then also like whether or not to have kids, because I'm truly, today I want them. But, kind of struggling with that decision, which I think a lot of people, in their 30s are dealing with, and in their 20s too. Like, I think it's a really tough decision to make, and I think people are thinking a lot more about it than maybe like our parents did. So yeah, those are kind of the broad strokes of the hour now, and it's been really fun. And I'm doing something different on this tour where we do something called Crowd Confessions, which is similar to how this Q&A is going to work, where they text answers into, they can text questions for me into a number that I have on my phone. Also, we have like a list of questions that I have, because I love doing crowd work on the road. And you saw how I jumped on that baby. I love talking to people in the audience, but there's not enough time to do that, and I can't hear anybody past like the first few rows. I can't see anybody. It's dark, And so this allows me to we pass out pamphlets and we put up a bunch of questions on the screen about like, when did you stop being religious? When did you come out as queer? Like all these questions that I would love to just sit and ask everybody and then discuss, but don't have time during the show. So we do that right at the end, me and whoever's opening for me that weekend, which has been really fun to like riff with my friends as well, which I'm sure hosting the show has like helped me get better at as well. So it all kind of feeds into each other. That's what I love about comedy. Like every type of comedy helps you get better at whatever other form of comedy you're doing.
When you look back at like the early days of doing stand-up for you in churches, doing clean stuff, and you're writing stuff as a very visible professional now, do you look back at your old material and still see that like the bones of what you're doing now in there? Do you think, were you being yourself at that time, or how have things changed since then?
Ooh, that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it depends how far back. Like, are you talking about like in the very beginning? Because I had homework. Like I was doing bits about prom, like for real. So maybe not so much then. Like I love stand-up because it has really allowed me to become the person I always wanted to be, I think. Like when I started doing stand-up, I was really insecure. I was horribly socially anxious. I had horrible stage fright. I was like physically ill for days before I'd get on stage. I was also a child, so all of that makes sense. If you're 16, you probably shouldn't be on stage. So it all checks out. But when I did get on stage, I was like, okay, this is the person I would like to grow into, someone who can do this and is good at this. And I think it has helped. And who I am on stage is now who I am in real life. But that sort of came together over the last like 10 years. So the early days, I see somebody like very young and very insecure and scared, but figuring it out.
Can you talk a bit about how the tour has been going and especially some of that crowd confession stuff that you're doing? Any favorite stories you want to share?
Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Like, I don't know. There's been so many good ones. I mean, it's funny because some people will write in answers and sometimes they're so funny that I'm like mad. Like sometimes people will write some in and I read it out and I go, just so you guys know, I'm going to read this, but it's very funny and I'm upset because I didn't think of it, but we're going to read it and we're all going to laugh together. But it is like an opportunity to connect with the audience in a way that I wouldn't get to otherwise. And like Sophie Buttle and Zach Noe Towers were opening for me in the last few cities, Toronto, Boston, and Chicago. And it's so much fun. I mean, it's the closest I've ever done to like doing a live, I don't have a podcast, but like doing a live podcast, it feels more like that. And getting to watch them interact with the audience and like play off of each other. And like, I mean, you know, Sophie's like my work wife at this point. Like I feel bad because I make her go on the road with me on the weekend and then we fly home at midnight Sunday and she has to go into work at 8 a.m. and I like breeze in at noon. And I'm like, did you write a monologue? So I always feel bad. But yeah, it's so much fun. And like, I'm getting more and more appreciative and grateful for stand-up the longer I do it, like in a way that I wouldn't have expected. I would have thought maybe I would get more tired or burnt out or like, I don't know, maybe like desensitized or something, but I'm truly always so grateful that I get to do it and that people want to come see me do it live, just on a level that I never even thought was possible. Like when I was coming up, like comedians weren't doing huge theaters unless they were like, you know, Dane Cook or whatever. Like it just wasn't a thing. And now with the internet, like so many comics are doing such huge, impressive things. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like you were setting me up for a funny story and I went heartfelt and that sucked.
I love to go heartfelt. I love to go heartfelt.
There was one person who wrote in, I had Jay Jordan opening for me in Harvard. Oh my gosh, Jay's so funny. And somebody wrote in that they want to develop a dating app for formerly religious people and call it Nailed. That's so good, right? I was so upset. I know. I was like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's incredible.
It's fine that you didn't think about it. Just invest in it. Get rich together.
I know, right? I was like, whoever did that, I know it's anonymous, but whoever did that, you start that tomorrow. Yeah.
I think we're about ready to take some audience questions. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can't read them.
Oh, here we go.
First question, will you be taking Sawyer on the road?
Where's Sawyer? Is sleeping? Okay, well, huh? She's half awake? Okay, just waiting for the spotlight to be on her again. That's my girl. Does Sawyer have a passport? Then yes. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine you come and see me in another city and they're like, a baby cries at every show. Like 15 minutes in, just when she's losing steam, a baby cries right then every time.
I love this one. Who was the first stand-up comedian you went to see live?
Ooh, the first stand-up comedian I went to see live. Well, I started doing stand-up when I was 16, and I was only in churches, so I saw like church comedians on shows that I was on. But when I turned 18, I had never been to a comedy club before, obviously, and was like, we got to go see what this is all about. And so I went to the Ice House in Pasadena, and I saw Mark Maron headlining, and Maria Bamford was featuring, because she must have just been in town, and Eddie Pepitone did a set. And that was at the Ice House in Pasadena, which if you haven't been is like an amazing club. And I was like just blown away, like changed my life. I was like, oh my God, like this is where comedy's supposed to happen. Like it was such a good show.
What healthy habits do you use to deal with the pressures of the entertainment industry?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, depends on the day of the week. Because it's good to it's not good to look at your own face this much. Like that's not good for you. And I don't really have a choice Monday through Wednesday. And so on the weekends, I will try not to be on social media as much as I can help it. I think knowing what your priorities are as a person and knowing that you can't run yourself into the ground just to make the most of every opportunity. Like some opportunities, yes, you have to just like make it happen at all costs. But if you want any sort of like longevity in this career, like you do have to take care of yourself mentally and physically. So yeah, I think just knowing who you are, knowing what your priorities are, knowing what your goals are and where you want to end up, because you don't have to do everything. Like I had lots of older comics, like older male comics tell me when I was younger, when I was like 21, like you need to hang out more. Like you need to be hanging out at the clubs until like 1 a.m. and like making friends with comedians. And they're not totally incorrect in that like, yes, it is important to be friends with other comics and like be a part of the community. And that is like such a great thing about coming up in stand up. But also like go to bed, like get as much stage time as you can. But like, yeah, like I didn't hang out cause I was really anxious and everything worked out fine. I just worked really hard and I sought out the people I wanted to be friends with. Like I went out of my way to message people on Instagram or get people's phone numbers that I really wanted to connect with. And that's how I met some of like my best friends. So I would just say like, stay focused. And then when opportunities come up, really ask yourself, is this something I want to do? Because it will lead to the goals I'm trying to achieve and help me in those ways. Or is it just something I'll enjoy doing? Because if you're enjoying yourself, you're usually going to find the people who are most in line with you and your values and doing what you want to do in this business. Like if you're just hanging out at one club a night and not getting on stage multiple times a night, like you're not going to run into those people who are doing as many sets as possible. Like I was running into the same people over and over because we were on a bunch of lineups together. And so that's how you end up meeting people who are working as hard as you are. Mm-hmm.
You talked about how important it is to know what your goals are. What's left that you haven't done that you really want to make sure you do in your career?
That's such a good question. I would like to. I've sold a few scripts. I'd like to get a movie made. But other than that, there's really not anything. I'm gonna be honest. That sounds maybe bad, but I'm writing a book right now. Hopefully that doesn't suck. But I think, those are like the two things left. And writing a book is something I've wanted to do like since I was a kid. So I'm very nervous about it. And, but I'm really enjoying the process a lot. So those are like my last two things, I think. But otherwise, like all I ever wanted to do was tour theaters doing stand-up. That's all I ever wanted to do. And be able to say to my team, like, I want to go to these cities this year. And the fact that I can is like amazing to me.
What is the superior utensil? This is an office debate. Fork, knife, or spoon?
I mean, is this even a conversation? It's a fork, right? 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 I like have a breakdown. That's what breaks me. It's a fork, right? Fork's the...
I'm kind of a spoon girl.
Really?
Yeah.
But spork? No, spork is crazy.
No.
Spork is insane.
Commit to something. Pick
Yeah,
one.
come on. Spork. Also, I've never seen a spork that wasn't plastic.
Yeah.
Right? Are they like they make camping sporks, but then you gotta camp. It's getting worse and worse. Yeah. Knives are underrated. Security? No, I'm kidding. I've eaten in enough hotel rooms that didn't have any utensils. Like enough, you go to enough hotel rooms on the road, you're eating yogurt with a knife. Like, you know what I mean? I've used every utensil in ways they shouldn't have been used. I've eaten Chipotle with a knife alone. It's really dark out there the first few years.
I love this one. How do you, all caps you, measure the success of the show? What is a cultural impact example you wish you will reach?
I mean, I think you saw earlier, I was like, does anyone watch this? I really don't know. I never ask for numbers. It's also with the internet, you know, they have the numbers of like how many people watch per night on television, but to me, I'm like, everything's streaming. Everything I watch is streaming. Everything's online. So if anything, I pay attention to the like TikTok and Instagram numbers more than anything else. I don't know. I guess like friends tell me more than anyone else. Friends will be like, my coworkers love the show. And I'm like, you sound so surprised. Why are you so confused? Or like a lot of my friends are like, my parents love it. They watch it every morning. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I really don't know. To me, the show feels... it's not even about the show feeling successful. It's about the show feeling like the best version of itself that it can. And when it feels like that, to me, it's when we have really funny guests on, preferably who are like all friends or know of each other, and we're all like really loose and having fun, and the audience is really good. Like that, and like when you feel like you can just do whatever you want up there, that's to me when it feels the most successful, I guess.
Here's one person who definitely watches the show. I absolutely love the way the show has evolved over time. How do you know when a change is needed and when something new you try has worked?
CBS goes, good job. And we go, okay, thanks. I think that's really the only way. I don't know. You feel it out. You go, oh, that worked. That was funny. There have also been games that I was skeptical of that I was like, I don't know how that's going to go, that were then my favorite games we've played. Like we played, one of our writers, Skylar Higley, came up with this game called Potato or iPhone, where we had guests put their hand into a box. There's a hole in a box. It's giving Dune Bucket. And they just said they had to pretend, they had to go, it's an iPhone or it's a potato. And the other two had to guess if they were lying or not. And if they tricked them, they got points. And I read that game and I was like, I don't know about potato or iPhone. And we played it and I was like, this is the best the show's ever been. It was incredible. We played it several times. It's like one of my favorite games. Sam Taggart came up with a game on the show called Gorgeous Girl or Gorgeous Horse, where we show zoomed in photos of hair and we go, is this a horse or a girl? That's the whole game, and I love it. Michelle Davis came up with a game called Obsess Sesh, where we just make them yell about what they're obsessed with, like for 30 seconds at a time. It was like Me with Better Man. Like it's so fun. Like I mean, that's how I know something's working. The show is working when even something that I was like, I don't know, like, well, let's try it. And when we take a big swing and it pays off, I'm like, oh, this show is working. You know.
Let's see. What are your favorite type of TikToks?
Oh, this isn't going to be funny. So when we first, it's not like sad. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that. So when the show first started, a note we kept getting was like, what's Taylor interested? Like, what's on Taylor's For You page? Like, we want to incorporate that more into the show. And I was like, oh no. So Joe's like, just send me what's on there. And I was like, okay. And she got like a lot of cottage core TikToks. There was a girl on TikTok that like quit her job and moved to a cottage in the woods to write a novel. And I was like, this is all I care about on the internet, Joe. There was a woman who makes, I kid you not, like a middle-aged British lady who cleans houses who made like 15 TikToks a day. I watch her every day. I mean, I was like, these are the things I care about, Joe. And they're not going to make for great late night. And like, we put a couple of them up as like, haha, isn't this funny that Taylor's a loser? And then they were like, okay, we're going to go back to the writer's room and see what the cool young people are watching. Because, you know, I'm not watching like comedy on TikTok. I'm watching people quit, you know? I'm watching people run away to a farm. That's what I want.
Taylor, I could talk to you for another hour. This has been so much fun, but that is the time we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. This was great. One more time for Sawyer, everybody.
Yes.
Catch us on tour.